Thank you.
Hello, everyone. Nice to see you. Tuesday, February 4th, 2025. Thanks for being here on the Clean Call today. We have a presentation from Tamara Ledley that we'll do in a little bit. But if folks want to put their introductions into the chat this morning, that would be great. If you can't type in the chat, you could quickly unmute and tell us who you are. But I also wanted to start with if anybody has any announcements while we kind of let folks settle into the room here. Gina, did you mean to raise your hand?
I'll just get us started. I wanted to mention that we have a couple of events this month for Clean, and they're all partner events. So they're with other people in the Clean Network, which is exciting. On February 11th, we're going to be doing a presentation with the Solve Climate by 2030 group out of Bard College, David Blockstein's group. Clean and Subject Climate are going to be presenting on climate education resources. So there's that. And then another one I'm really excited about, Patrick Chandler, our education specialist, is going to be presenting on the new NCA 5 National Climate Assessment Educator Guide that he created. And we're going to be doing that at the next Teach Climate workshop with Climate Generation. I believe that is February 19th, but I will get some links and put them in the chat.
Thanks, Gina. And Tiffany's on the call. We're actually going to be presenting with Tiffany for Earth Center as well at the end of this month, February 26th. So I'm excited about that.
We are too.
Great. Anyone else have any announcements they'd like to throw out there this morning? And thanks everyone for putting your information in the chat. We have quite a few folks here today.
I just put a link in the chat. If anyone has contacts in Montana teachers, we're doing a climate change workshop for teachers at the University of Montana, Missoula, February 21st through 22nd. Montana has a lot of interesting connections to Indigenous knowledge in their climate standards. So I'm excited about that.
Yeah, they are a place I've gone to looking for resources around Indigenous knowledges of climate. They were developing that over the last few years with the standards, so that's cool. Wendy, if you want folks to reach out to you specifically, if they have contacts, I don't know if you wanted to put your email in the chat, but you did put a link in, which is awesome for the actual training.
I think my email is on that link as well, that flyer, but
perfect.
Yeah, just feel free to share it with any teachers who might be. I'm not super familiar with Montana, but I think that Missoula's way over in the, was it southeast corner, maybe? It's close to other states. I should know what other states.
If it's in the southeast corner, it'll be next to the two Dakotas, and then Wyoming is south of Montana. So
actually west. I think it's southwest corner. Yeah.
Southwest Montana. Then you'll
North
be
Dakota last year, and I kept messing up all of those states up there.
Then you'll be closer to Idaho, and Wyoming will be the
it's
states over there.
pretty close. It's reasonably close to Glacier National Park too.
Yes, that side of the state is. Cool, thanks. That sounds exciting. Good luck with that, Wendy. Oh, you did put your email in the chat too, so awesome. And I think Jim, did you want to talk? James, did you want to talk about the announcement you put in the chat, or do you want to leave that one in the chat?
I put the essentials there, but it's a example of in California, Bay Area, UC Berkeley. We still care, and we're still doing things about energy, and we can see where the rest of the country goes, but there are certainly parts of the country that are not giving up on science and not starting to dig oil everywhere, right? When we're already at major oil production levels already. So anyway, it's just an event many of us will be at in a couple weeks.
Great, thanks, James. We had a few folks come in the room since I made the initial announcements. For those of you who have joined us, we are putting our introductions into the chat because we'll have a presentation today and we want to get going on that, and we're doing announcements right now. So let's see, Tiffany, I think you put something in the chat. Do you want to announce that in talking as well, or leave it in the chat?
Sure, I can announce it. Yeah, so our center focuses a lot on community college educators and instructors, and we have a unique professional development opportunity that's going to be a year-long program broken up into 3 different parts. And our first part is going to be going out to the whole thing is focusing around the Colorado River specifically, and then a lot of the different types of industry and offshoots and issues around the Colorado River resource. And so our first part is going to be happening in June, June 23rd through the 27th. And we'll be heading out to the headwaters of the Colorado River, Boulder area. And we've got an exciting agenda filled with a lot of different industry visits, community college visits, trying to get hands-on resources and labs into the minds and hands of instructors in the community college space. So if you are a community college instructor in the environmental and natural resources areas, or you know people, please share that event with them. Applications are open until the 14th of March, and we'll let applicants know of selection by the end of March.
Great, thank you. All right, does anyone else have any announcements this morning? Awesome. If not, then we'll turn it over to Tamara, who's going to be talking about her experience with climate in business classes. Tamara, go ahead.
Okay, so I'm going to first share my screen and then start the presentation. So you should be able to see my fern there. There. So can everybody see the title screen?
No, we don't see a shared screen.
Okay, let me try that again. Let's see what happened. Share, share, share.
There it goes.
Okay, and then there. You see it?
I see, yes, there's the slides. Thanks.
Okay, great, good. Okay, so I'm going to be talking about my Connecting Climate Change and Business semester project. So when I first started, so I teach global climate change at Bentley University. It is an undergraduate business school. Every single student is a business major. So there is no hope of converting anybody to a STEM major. But when I first started teaching this class in 2018, I went to all of my colleagues in the Clean Network who taught undergraduate courses in climate change and asked them if they would share their syllabus with me so that I could think about how to put together a class. And I put together, probably at that point, a class pretty much like theirs, but their classes were all fulfilled general education requirements, but were really aimed at attracting people to become STEM majors. And it became clear pretty soon that this is not really what is of interest to business students. In fact, some business students would say, why are you teaching us all this hard science when you know we're business students? When what they did was sign up for a science course. So I wanted to get at some of the challenges that I began to address over time. Making the subject relevant to the students. Why is it that they would want to know this science? And then getting the students engaged in their learning. And when students are not interested in science, it has to be something that's ongoing and not just a one-off assignment that students a lot of times will, if they're working in groups, will divide and conquer. I had students doing an activity together in class, and one student took questions 1 through 3, and the next student took questions 4 through 6, and I'm like, they're supposed to all learn all of the content, not just a piece of it. So how to get them really engaged in their learning, and then extending that learning beyond the individual class or test, because it is the last thing that they're really interested in doing. So in the past few years, I've developed this semester long-term project, and I'd always had a final paper in the class, but the students would not start the final paper until the week before it was due, which was not the point. So I developed this semester-long project, which included these 3 major pieces. So you'll see here to the left is the start of the semester, mid-semester, and semester end. We started with this Wikipedia article contribution, and then a final paper, and then a final presentation. So I'm going to just first address why these different pieces and what was the attraction of assigning the student to this Wikipedia assignment. Well, when I had students write short essays and they were writing just to me, they wouldn't even proofread what they wrote. Their focus on being able to communicate anything was really very limited. So by writing for this wider audience, they had some incentive to write clearly and something that was understandable to non-experts. And the other incentive is that when you look it up, Wikipedia articles on companies are viewed on the order of hundreds to thousands of times per day. So you have the potential of getting what you write out there. And then the other piece that actively engages students in distinguishing factual from promotional material and biased and unbiased sources. So this is a real challenge, helping students understand when they are reading something that is peer-reviewed and unbiased, and when how to know if something is correct. What do you do to look at it? And Wikipedia does require you to you cannot use the website of the company. If you're writing about a company that has a Wikipedia article, you're not allowed to write about take any information directly from the company's website. The company's website can direct you to something, but you need peer-reviewed resources, secondary resources. Another example of this, separate from a company, is if I was an expert on a particular topic and wrote lots of articles, and then there's a Wikipedia article about that topic, my students could not contribute to that because of the conflict of interest of their professor being having a vested interest in what the Wikipedia article says. So that's why it's so that's why it helps students distinguish those kinds of resources. And then the other is that it actually addresses 4 of the 7 course learning goals in my class. NAS is Natural and Applied Sciences. That's just the course number. So the overarching goal of the class is to provide the students with a background that will enable them to consider aspects of climate change and the decisions that they make in their future for their businesses, for their organizations, their communities, and personally. So this is the connection. Why is understanding climate change relevant to them? Is that they're going to need to be able to make responsible decisions in the future. So these are the 7, these are very abbreviated versions. The learning goals actually have a little bit more description to them, but in just really being concise here, it is a science class. We address the Earth's energy balance, the greenhouse effect, and Earth system science, and human impacts. One of the other goals is data analysis. What I have found in my class is that students really do not know how to effectively read information, data that is presented to them on graphs and on maps. And so there's a lot of using, developing that skill throughout my course. Then the key, making it relevant, the business case for understanding global climate change, and then effectively communicating it to others. So you want them to be able to have a conversation in their company when they get there about climate change. So these are so of those 7, these 4 are all addressed by this semester-long project. And it is a significant fraction of what they do in the class. So this is just a quick overview of how the semester project accounts for 60% of their grade. The test is 20% of their grade, and it's the only piece I tell them that is purely the science. It doesn't, there's no politics, no economics, no social, cultural issues. The test is only the science. It's the only piece that's only the science. And then participation is 20% of their grade too. And that is because unless they actually engage in doing all of the activities in class and actively engage in the semester project, they won't get a whole lot out of it. So what I'm going to do now is just show you what the Wikipedia article contribution is. Wikipedia, Wiki Education is a nonprofit that is, I actually don't know how it's funded, but they provide for free this platform where any college professor can apply, develop an online course, and this is the online course for actually last semester. So you'll see week 1 was September 1st through September 7th. Where's my cursor here? Can't find it. There we go. September 1st to September 2nd. And this is just, this is just going to go down so this is week 1. And then there's week 2 where they find their article. It provides them training modules on how to edit Wikipedia. What is Wikipedia's, it's not, I was trying to start and stop this video and it keeps, I'll just let it run. So, but this goes week to week and it shows you they're finding their article. It provides training on what the policies are of Wikipedia, how to evaluate an article, how to add citations, what are their policies about plagiarism, and so forth. And as you can see, this ends in week 8. The course is, the whole course is 14 weeks long, but I have the Wikipedia contribution finished by week 8, so that then they can move on to their final project. And we'll look at the distinction between the two in a second. So this is just examples of some of the training modules about what is a good source, independent sources that don't relate directly to the subject. And this is very, very stringent for Wikipedia. That would not be usual in a general college essay, in that you can't use the website of the company and you can't use any writings by the leadership of the company. Sources that are known for fact checking and for being and maintaining a neutral perspective, and then those from reliable publishers. So then what I've engaged the Bentley University's research librarian to help the students identify resources that will be useful. And so these are what's a good source, what's not a good source. In the case of Wikipedia, press releases and promotional material are not good sources because you do not want promotional material. You don't want a promotional tone in any Wikipedia article. It's considered an encyclopedia. Again, official websites, self-published materials like CVs and other Wikipedia articles are also not good sources. So let's look at the details of what the semester project actually involves. So there's the Wikipedia contribution itself, and what the students do is they select an existing Wikipedia article about a company, and they're going to contribute to that article. And they complete all the training modules and exercises in the Wikipedia online course, and their research is to gather information about the impact of climate change on that particular company and the impact of the company on climate change. And I used to include also what is the companies doing about those impacts. However, that proved to be too promotional for many Wikipedia editors. I don't know if you've ever engaged in editing a Wikipedia article, but any other Wikipedia editor can dispute what you've added and take it out. And it's been an issue the past couple of semesters where even when we can document for facts of what a company is doing about climate change, if it makes a company look good, the Wikipedia editors say it sounds promotional. So we've taken that piece out of the Wikipedia contribution, and we just have the students look at the impact of climate change on the company and the impact of the company on climate change. And this is an example. A few semesters ago, one of my students edited the Wikipedia article about the Coca-Cola company. And highlighted in the purple is what my student added to this contribution. So you can see that it can be when you actually manage to get it to sound simply factual and not promotional, you can have can make a significant contribution to a Wikipedia article. So then we move on to the final paper. The final paper, it's intended that the students use the research that they did through the beginning of the course. So this gets at this ongoing aspect to the activity. And they provide an overview of the company and the content of the Wikipedia contribution. Then they answer the question, what is the company doing to address those impacts? Either way, the impact of the company on climate and the impact of climate on the company. And then this is the place where they can have opinions, where what should the company do, both to reduce its impact on climate change and to adapt to the impacts of climate change. When I first was implementing this, I had the students then do a final presentation in which they just really presented the content of their final paper. But one of the students then asked me, I says, well, what can I as an entry-level employee do? All the things that they come up with as to what the company should do are things that would be determined or decided at the CEO, president, or board of directors level. So what can they do as a entry-level employee? And so their final presentation actually focuses on that. What can an entry-level employee do to support the company addressing climate change? And what would they look for in a company when they're looking for their first job? And in this case, so if I have this semester, I have 29 students in my class. They're working in pairs. I have 15 teams. Everybody in the class will hear ideas about what an entry-level employee can do for 15 different companies. So this is the overview of the semester project. But in order to explore what the impact of this semester project was on student opinions, I implemented a pre and post course IRB approved a survey. The pre-survey was administered the very first day of class. We got to class, we have everybody introduce each other, and they did the survey. And then at the end of the final exam block. And responding was completely voluntary and it had no impact on their grades. I had what I'm going to be presenting to you now is the result from 31 students from the spring of 2023 and the spring of 2024. I do have the data from the fall of 2024, I've just not had time to analyze it yet, and I have implemented the pre-course survey in my class that started 2 weeks ago. So there are 12 opinion questions that basically explore, did the engagement of the global climate change course influence the opinions of the students about how companies should view and respond to climate change? So this is the results for 3 of the questions. It's in a format that's a little bit different than you might be useful, so I'm going to go over this in some detail. First of all, the 3 questions here are how important is climate change to the day-to-day decisions making of a company? How important is climate change in the short term, meaning annual decision making of a company? And how important is climate change information to the long-term strategy of a company? And for each question, we have the results from the pre and the post survey. The blue bar is the range of first to the third quartile. And the orange is the median. Both of these are rounded to the nearest quarter. And then the dots are the maximum and the minimum and the maximum responses. And so one of the things that was very interesting, especially the very first semester that I did this, was that even before the course started, I keep losing my cursor here. Even before the course started, the students realized that climate change information is important to the long-term strategy of a company. The median was 9, while the minimum value was pretty low, only a 2. The first quartile was at 8, and it went all the way up to 10, and the maximum value where there was 10. But what was the impact of the semester-long project is reflected in the changes that occurred. So the median for this long-term strategy went up from 9 to 10. But looked at the how important is climate change information to the short-term strategy of a company, the median went up from 5.5 to 9. And the range from the first to the third quartile only overlaps a very little bit. It completely moved up to the 10. You'll notice that all of the third quartile now is up at 10 for all 3 in the post survey. And that for the day-to-day decisions making a company, the median went up from a 6 to a 9. And even the minimum score, the minimum responses also went up dramatically for each of these. So this is not a conventional way to look at this data, so I thought I'd show you the more conventional way. This is how important is the climate change information in the long-term strategy of a company. And so here you can see it in the response count here on the vertical scale and that level of comfort 1 to 10 here. And you can see that for the long-term strategy, while there is much more dispersion in the responses on the pre-survey, so it did move up a lot. The thought that for the most part is that the understanding climate change was important for the long-term strategy of the company. But now here you can see this is the day-to-day decision making of a company. And you can see the student responses were all over the place on the pre-course survey and pretty much moved up to 5 or higher on the post-course survey, with the highest number of students up at 10. And then a similar situation for the short-term annual decision-making of company. This dispersion over the entire scale on the pre-survey and moving up quite a bit in the post-survey. And another set of questions that I wanted to share with you is the questions around how well informed they feel. So the first question here is, personally, how well informed do you feel about how the Earth system works? And then how comfortable are you talking to others, family, friends, and community about climate change? And the last one, which is to me the most important one, was how comfortable will you be discussing climate change in your first job, given the opportunity to gather information about the company? And you can see dramatic changes in all of these for how well they feel informed about how the Earth's climate system works. The median went up from a 5 to an 8, and the quartile range, the first to the third quartile, went up from 3 to 7 to 7.5 to 9. So these didn't even overlap anymore. How comfortable are they talking to family and friends? The median went up from 6.5 to 9. And you can see that on the pre-survey, the minimum number was 1 and the maximum number 10. So students had quite a range of understanding and comfort level, but that minimum value went up from a 5. It went up to a 5 from that 1. So a pretty dramatic shift here. And then how comfortable you be in discussing climate change in your first job, given the opportunity to gather information about the company. And the median went up from a 5 to an 8. So pretty dramatic shifts. And I have also those graphs in the more traditional way of looking at this data. And again, you see on the pre-course survey, how personally well informed do they feel about how the climate system works, was all over the place. from 1 to 10 on the pre-survey and pretty much 5 and above on the post-survey. Similar kind of results for how comfortable are they talking to others, and then how comfortable would they be discussing climate change in their first job after Bentley, given the opportunity to gather information about the company. And pre-survey, again, all across the board, 1 to 10, and post-survey pretty much shifted up with much larger numbers and the higher values. Only one person had a 4, 2 people had a 5, and after that you had pretty much over 4 responses in the higher values. So this was a result of that pre and post survey, which was completely optional. It's actually interesting because I didn't think about it before. The students do this survey without any notes of any kind. On the test, they're allowed notes, and they can look at anything that we've used in class. So this is really their knowledge and understanding. The first half of the survey is content about the class and is mostly for me to improve my teaching. So it's not quite as important here. But one of the other things I wanted to share was that the students have an extra credit opportunity to write a reflection on the semester project. And these are just some what I thought pretty interesting comments that I extracted from some of their essays. This first one, the research paper on Toyota and its relationship with environmental change gave a significant chance to investigate the intricate exchange between corporate activities and worldwide ecological difficulties. I don't think the students very often get to think about things in systems like approaches. And I really try to get at that here. And students really spend time here thinking about that interaction between the workings of a company and environmental challenges. This one was really interesting to me. The project also made me aware of issues in equity and justice that companies face. This must have been inherent in the company that he chose because it's not an explicit piece of the semester project. So, but these equity and justice issues do come out in a lot of their research. And then this gets at the understanding the difference between biased and unbiased resources and promotional and neutral resources. I struggled to find sources that concerning the company I was given, but after extensive trial and error, I was able to heavily improve my ability to research unorthodox and specific topics and began to understand what sources come out as biased or not. So that's the overview of my semester project. So thank you very much and happy to have more discussion and answer any questions.
Thanks, Tiffany. Or sorry, thanks, Tamara. I was trying to read the comments. Tiffany just put in fascinating in there. I think James' comments are more comments.
I have not seen the chat, so I don't.
No, I'm sure you haven't. That's why I was trying to kind of review. I think they're mostly comments. Does anyone have any questions or
I have a quick
thoughts they'd like to share?
Tamara, can you remind me, was this for business students?
Yes.
Okay.
Every student in my class is a business student. Now, some of them can they can have a second major, and one of the secondary majors is energy, environment, and sustainability, I believe it is. And my course, if they're going to do that major, my class is a requirement. But that is relatively new. It's only been 3 semesters now that new curriculum, and prior to that, students could have a liberal studies second major, and one of them was environment also. And so there were those students, but all of them are business students. Their first major is business of some kind, finance, accounting, marketing. It's interesting to think of students that are marketing having to write something that is not promotional. Is kind of interesting.
Well, it's interesting because I think your course would be perfect for somebody in writing and rhetoric and technical communication, as well as sustainability studies, all of those majors. And I work closely with a professor at the University of Kentucky who teaches a technical communication course through writing, rhetoric, and digital
Mhm.
design. I'm gonna tell her about this. She's done amazing courses in the past that have really helped students be
Mhm.
more ready for a host of different kinds of jobs. But what I love about your course is that they get to actually edit, a page that
Right.
bazillions of people are going to see and use and learn how to interpret that information objectively, you know.
Mhm. Okay, so let me, so Wiki Education, I'm just one course that they've supported. They do hundreds each semester, and they can be on all different topics. And in mine, I've chosen in mine that the students contribute to an existing Wikipedia article. You can have your course and have your students create a whole new Wikipedia article if you think that there's a hole. Now, the challenge in my class, and so this is a caveat to what I've said so far, if you're going to be addressing climate change, we have found it to be a tremendous challenge. I mentioned that there are external Wikipedia editors, and the past 2 semesters, they basically targeted my class because anything the students write that is something good about the company, like something they're doing that is actual documented fact about how they're addressing climate change, they say sounds promotional, and so they take it out.
Yeah.
We've actually worked with the Wikipedia editors this semester, the Wikipedia staff, to try to identify how can we make it so that the students, what they contribute is not viewed as being promotional. So moving that question about what the companies are doing about it to the final project paper instead of in the Wikipedia article is one avenue. And Wiki Education staff have provided me with a template to help the students think that through. So it is, so if you're addressing climate change, it's a little bit touchy, but
Yeah.
almost everything else. And I will say that for the most part, the technical support is tremendous. They have office hours once a week. And so you can come, if you have a course, you go to the office hours, you can ask any question you need to ask. They do have a button, even for the students, if there are technical issues the students are having, they can click on that button and type in their issue, and somebody from the technical staff will get back to them. So there is a tremendous amount of support there. And I agree with you, addressing a wide range of issues, it is very powerful in terms of, because you can make it, I chose to make my Wikipedia piece 8 weeks long because I wanted them to then take time to do the final paper, which had their opinions in it and everything. But you can make it the entire semester. And so, and just so you know that there is a lot of science going on in my class and a lot of in-class activities. I use resources from the Clean Collection. So there's hard science in it too. But this is I try to keep them engaged through the entire semester. I mean, one student said to me, "You mean I'm starting today in the first class on a project that's not due until the end of the semester?" And I said, "Yes, and you're going to work on it every single week." It's hard for some of them to get that through their heads, and they are required to meet with me twice during the semester. I didn't mention that before, and with the research librarian at least once. We also, at Bentley, we have a tremendous extra resource. I don't know how many of you have ever heard of the Bloomberg terminal, but it's a terminal that provides extensive financial information about companies. It provides ESG scores for all the companies, and it compares them to other companies in the same sector. So you can go very deep in getting environmental information. It has tremendous amount of information about the hazards and where geographically a particular company is vulnerable. The catch is that for a single Bloomberg terminal, the license fee a year is like $24,000. And most schools do not have this. If it does, it may have one. Bentley has a trading room with 24. So I actually had my second class last week, was entirely in the trading room with one of their student analysts, helping my students understand how to actually use the Bloomberg terminal to get the information that they were going to need. So that is an extra resource. So Roberta, you're right in terms of addressing, being very, very valuable for a lots of other, for lots of other kinds of courses. Just be careful if you're addressing climate change, there could be additional caveats. Jim, I see have your hand raised.
Great. Thank you, Tamara. And this is so helpful and so important to the work I do, and I think for many of us, where it's to be able to check in with what is being taught at the undergraduate or the graduate level, because I'm one of the few that part of a semester-long climate science class at the high school level, right? And so we have to learn from what many others are doing. What is shared is, well, it's kind of a controversial thing, and the things I teach with the other teachers is we need to address right off the bat, why is this relevant to the students? Many of our students are looking to be entrepreneurs or go into business. So, I mean, within our high school, they're not looking to, convince them to be a STEM major is that may not be a winning strategy to have that. So there's a lot of the thing of bringing in guests from these fields to talk about things, to talk specifics. And so I'm also checking in on this one of, for instance, there can be having some discussion about, okay, let's give an example of a field that you might want to go into. Do you want to go into the insurance field? Do you want to go into the healthcare field? Where are you going to be a business person, right? There's not, that's going on. Okay, so you're going to go in the insurance field, or that's what you're thinking of. So as an insurance company, are you going to tell the people how they do their actuary fees and their things? So climate change isn't a problem. It's not real. There's not going to be sea level rise. There's not wildfires are caused by women. The hurricanes and things. Okay, how is that insurance company going to go versus an insurance company that's going to say, hey, we have to raise our rates in California. They're having huge rates in California go up because of wildfires. Where are you going to have your business model? Because your money's it's billions of dollars in next year. So talk about that one. So if you think you're going to go more the science route, where are you going to get that information? How about in our class when we're starting? But this is what, if you're going to go in these careers, are you going to be worth anything if you're going to these careers and you're going to have an anti-science point of view, right? There's kind of like talk that through with people. Insurance is kind of like, really? You're going to say there's nothing to worry about? As an example. So. Right.
No, it was interesting. One of the things, I let the students pick the company that they wanted to contribute to. The only criteria was, well, there were two criteria. One is it had to have an existing Wikipedia article, because it's too much effort I want them to focus on climate change and not everything else about the company. So I didn't want them to have to do that. The second was, and this was because of the Bloomberg terminal, I asked them to pick a company that was in the S&P 500 because that increased the likelihood that the Bloomberg terminal would have information about it. As it turns out, the Bloomberg terminal has information about more companies than just those in the S&P 500. But what was interesting is that the range of companies that the students chose. So some of them picked oil companies, and some of them picked Patagonia, some of them picked Amazon. So, and when you saw one picked Coca-Cola. So it actually, and when I meet with them and I ask them why they picked the company, a lot of them have some interest in that particular area, whether it's for their career or their personal life, varies from student to student. But by allowing them to pick, they will pick what's of interest to them. I got another view into what's of interest to them too. Another thing that I didn't mention that I'm allowing through this is I know that companies want their students to be able to engage with AI effectively and ethically. So I asked them to use AI to help guide them. And then through each step of the project, they have to tell me how they used AI and how they modified it. But to get them going on using AI, the very first class of the semester, I asked them to think of a topic that they know a lot about, and then to ask AI to write 250 words about that topic. And I do that in the context of systems, they didn't really pick up on that too much. But the idea was that then they could do a critique of how accurate AI was, because they supposedly picked a topic that they know something about. But it also gave me a really interesting window into what the students have their own interests out beyond the class itself. So that was I had students, one student who I never would have thought, I mean, I don't know the students all that well yet, asked the AI to write about the climate of Mount Kilimanjaro. I had another student ask AI to write about carburetors in cars. And so, there's, a huge range of interests, which by picking the subjects that they think are interesting, gets them engaged in doing the kinds of things that you want them to do to develop their skills. So I think, Jim, asking the students how, to think about what they want to go into and then exploring that further is pretty powerful.
Any other questions for Tamara?
Tamara, could I ask a quick one? How the students, this is an elective course, or it's not a, they're choosing to do this course, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's important, right? It's much, I
Yeah.
think it's much better when the students have shown some interest in doing it rather than, I didn't even want to be here.
Well, one of the things was interesting. So I mentioned that one of the student analysts gave the presentation about how to use the Bloomberg terminals. And he did it for me. The first time I ever did it was last fall. And so he did it for me last fall. And then I guess he's a senior and he's actually not graduating until next December. And he did it, he did it for this class too. And I met with him before the semester started just to sort of get engaged in what we were going to talk about during the class. And then he emailed me about before we actually had the class where he presented. And he said, well, so he's a senior and he has to take one class that is designated as scientific inquiry. And he's a senior and he hadn't done that yet. So he's looking through the list of classes and he realizes that my class is scientific inquiry. We do some kind of scientific inquiry as class activities, almost every single class. So he did the presentation and now he's in the class. So he's a finance major through and through. You should hear them. I've been to the trading room a few times just so that I can get used to what the Bloomberg terminal is like and what it can provide. And listening to these student analysts talk, you might as well be at Wall Street. It's incredible. They really know their stuff. And I'm trying to help them apply it to something that might be important in their careers. So you could do this in a biology class, in a healthcare class. I like the idea of doing it and having them address a company makes it concise. When I first started, I had them do a sector, and that was too broad because there's a Wikipedia article on agriculture, that's just too broad to focus on. So an individual company gave some concrete focus to what they were doing. And then they might present at the end of what they're looking for in a company, and it would be the opposite of whatever the features are of the company that they did research on. Any other comments or thoughts? Any other feedback? I think I have 18, so I had 31 students total in the results I showed you. I think I have something on the order of 15 more students from the fall. And we'll see how many I end up with. I have 27 surveys from the pre-survey, but I have to have matching surveys. So generally there's a fall off when I do that.
Like we just,
Any other thought?
Future careers, internships. I mean, how to answer that question? I don't know. Bentley students get internships. That's generally not an issue, but mostly in the business areas. What I don't actually know, I should try to find this out. Do the students then end up working for the companies that they do internships for? I can only answer in the case of my son-in-law, and he didn't even go to Bentley. He got his MBA at Babson College. And he did an internship while he was an MBA student. And then, yes, he did go and work for that company for a few years. But generally, I don't really know. What oil companies? Shell was one of the companies. Actually, I can pull up, let's see. I'm going to pull up the list and tell you, because I have an ongoing list of all the companies my students have, so that the students in the next semester can see what the students, let's see here. All right, so this is a list of companies from last semester. Tyson Foods, NVIDIA, Lululemon, Airbnb, American Airlines, General Electric, Etsy, Uber Technologies, Ulta Beauty, Delta Airlines, Texas Instruments, Pfizer, Chipotle Mexican Grill, Coca-Cola, Ford Motor Company, Cigna, Amazon, the Hershey Company, General Motors, Lockheed Martin, Costco, Occidental Petroleum, AT&T, Cisco, Southwest Airlines, Pepsi, Hasbro, and Philip Morris International. This semester, which they've just chosen their company, so nothing's been done yet. Tesla, Delta Airlines, Nikola, Walmart, Lockheed Martin, Ulta, ExxonMobil, Costco, Abercrombie and Fitch, Oracle, American Airlines, Amazon, Shell Oil, and Philip Morris International. The reason I'm not sharing the screen is there's names are all over this. I can't show their names.
And Tamara, I imagine that gives you, you have some latitude of which ones you want to pick. I would certainly, among the ones that I'd be interested in having them explain, American Airlines and Delta Airlines. We don't care about energy efficiency. We don't care about how efficient our engines are. We don't care about alternative ways that fuel has.
No, that's not true. They do.
Don't work for Delta and American Airlines because they don't want you if that's your attitude, right? They don't got a business.
No, actually, it was a couple of years ago now when my first students did the airlines, and I actually wasn't even aware of the sustainable aviation fuel. And that's just a growing industry, I gather. And it's just very expensive right now, but it does have a much smaller carbon footprint than the normal aviation fuel.
And I could also say airports, if you go red states, blue states, anywhere in the country, you don't find many airports anymore that have old and inefficient lighting. It's just that doesn't happen because they have a tight bottom line. They're not looking at who they're voting for. They're trying to save money. I mean, there's that thing of asking a business student, think it through a little bit, and you make your choice. Maybe you'll go and be a denier, but you better know what you're denying.
Well, I can tell you, when I first started teaching the class, being at a business school and knowing that business people tend to be conservative, I did ask the question. I stopped asking these questions, but the questions were everybody introduced themselves, I asked them, let's see, what was their, I forget the first half of the question. The second half of the question, what were you concerned about? I guess the first one was, what do you hope to get out of this class? And the second one was, what were you concerned about the class? And what I was hoping is with that second question that I would get some sense of if there were any deniers in the class. And I can tell you, the 18 to 22-year-olds are not deniers. Now that you would think that over the course of the entire semester, then if they really were, that would come out at least some. But it's really most of them, I mean, all of them seem to realize that this is happening and they're going to have to address it some way. But I did, from the very first semester, one student sent me an email at 5 hours after the last class was over to say, I understood about my business career and I understood about climate change, but it never occurred to me that one impacted the other. So that was a clue that bringing the two together would make it more relevant to them, and they would dig in. So that it's still a challenge getting them to actually use data in an effective way. Now it's very sad that the student, when I have in-class activities where they're supposed to read data on maps and on graphs, and they really have no idea how to even look at one to extract information. I won't go into the details, but it's not a skill that they actually learned in high school. And so I work in helping them develop that skill. I try to put it in the context of reading graphs with financial data, which they have to do in their business classes. So making that connection sometimes is useful. But even that, when you talk about the energy budget and how much energy is coming in and how much is going out, and here's the bottom line, think about it as same as dollars coming in and dollars going out, you know, so to make that connection. So when do you want to describe what your data-wise tools are?
So we developed a tool aimed at high school students, although, you know, undergrads, like you said,
yeah.
have the same struggles.
Yeah.
And the tool really helps break down data, especially to help students look for misinformation. So, for example, BP has a lot of climate change, like infographics and things out there. And they're not necessarily like wrong. But of course, BP has a very specific slant where they're trying to tell you that climate change is just your individual fault and you should just, you know, ride your bike and turn off the lights and then we'll all be fine. So this tool has, the WISE stands for the steps that you need to go through of, is this worthy of my attention and who is saying this and why, and then inspect the data and does it make sense and what do other experts say about this data, and then reflecting on the emotions that it evokes. And so we have
Oh, thank you. I will take a look at that. What is your email address? So if I have questions, I can get back to you.
Yeah, it's johnson@ncse.ngo. But students at every level, right, have such difficulty with not just analyzing graphs and data, but then also thinking about like where this came from, you know, who made this and what a story are they trying to tell? And students typically, you know, they just say the data shows X, as if there was no, right, like human interference with the data.
Yeah, absolutely. That, you know, and I have trouble getting them to actually refer to the data when I require them to use data in their final papers. And yet they think of it as eye candy. They don't make a reference to that. I tell them I want them to use data from the figure in the text to strengthen the point they're trying to make in the text. It's very hard for them to think that way.
One way we think the DataWise tool could be used is that they could have to fill it out for each source. So, you know, when I taught high school, I would do debates, and that was often my challenge of like, dang it, like they convince each other of wrong things because they just sort of throw data up there and they say whatever about it. But if they had to go through and do this analysis first, right, then it would like force them to do these steps and hopefully understand the data and maybe recognize that maybe the data isn't actually supporting the claim that they think it supports.
Carolyn, you have a question?
Oh, just I sort of wanted to second that. I don't know if it would be of use in your class or just for like some ideas, but I put together this whole lesson on analyzing news stories, and I focus on climate change, but part of the questions that is asked in the like on the student worksheet is who is the author of this article and what are their credentials and are they present, you know, what might their bias might be, are they presenting any logical fallacies as part of their arguments? So again, even if the entirety of the lesson isn't useful to you, perhaps some of the bits on the worksheet
Okay.
might be helpful in that way. It's designed for high school, but I taught community college for 5 years, and I
Yeah,
can
no,
assure you that
high school and business students, undergraduates, same thing.
I
They're
said
the
I
same.
taught biology and earth science for non-STEM majors at a community college for 5 years.
Mhm.
And this is honestly, I took the idea to create this from one of the activities that I did with those students. I just focused it a bit more on climate stuff. So I posted the link in the chat. If you have
Yeah,
any
I see.
questions
I just got it.
whatsoever,
Thank you.
awesome. I'll drop my email as well. More than happy to answer questions if that could be of use to you at all.
Okay, great. Thanks.
James, I know I saw you raise your hand. I just want to acknowledge the time. We are past the hour. Tamara and James, if you can stay on to answer his question, that would be great. But I just wanted to acknowledge that for everybody. If you do need to go and weren't
Okay.
watching the time,
No,
thanks for
thanks,
joining us.
everybody. Okay, Jim.
James.
Yeah, yes. So, Tamara, again, thank you. This opens up a lot. It's really very valuable for us to connect. Um, a thing of, in some ways, I envy you that you probably do have some deniers or business majors that are pretty clearly, I mean, often the students I teach at are at schools where there's just not that many families that say it or think it or would say it, but because it is actually quite valuable to allow that person some latitude to say their thing, to be a debate. It's different when you have a debate and you have someone asking them to play devil's advocate, take a position you don't believe in. Where if
Mhm.
as long as someone's not disruptive, go ahead and argue. We want to hear it. You're going to learn what it's going to be like at a company and do this where you're either a minority or majority. And for the students who see it, I mean, I would hope, of course, I wouldn't hide, I don't hide some of my feelings on things that what I think we're seeing is this person is taking a position. I understood there's a lot of power into it, but they're looking 4 years down the line. You're looking at your whole career. How are you going to base your career on the stock market for the next 2-3 years?
Mhm.
As many are. That's a valid business decision. Is it the one you want to make, right? I mean,
Mhm.
but I mean, have that debate actually go on, and I mean, I'm sure you're not disrespectful to a student if you disagree with them, right? If they take a contrary position, it does liven things up a lot. I
Yeah.
don't always get that freedom.
Well, the other challenge that I have in my class is getting the students to say anything.
Mm.
They are so afraid of making a mistake that I actually had a student come to me when I met with him one-on-one. He says, I feel really bad with you. You ask a question and nobody says anything. And so he'll say, so he was one of the ones that would then speak up because he felt so bad about it. But it is a real problem,
Mhm.
is that they really are afraid to be wrong. And I try to make, I mean, a lot of, I didn't go into the grading of these things, but a lot of the steps in the Wikipedia project that are, did you do it or not? And you get the points if you did it, and you don't get the points if you didn't do it. And and the same thing with the in-class activities. I grade them in the sense that I make comments on them and provide them with the correct answers, but they only get credit for doing it or not doing it. It's part of the participation grade. If you do all, I mean, there's on the order of 14 or 15 during the course of the semester. And they'll get their 40 points for just doing them, no matter how well or badly they did on them. And they are 99% group effort, so that they get to talk to each other about it, because they clearly won't just talk to me in an open class, but they will talk to each other in small groups.
And that's great. It can be when there's open discussion in the classroom. What you're evaluating is, are they contributing something real to the discussion? It's not, they're going to be graded on what positions they took, right?
Right. Exactly.
Were they able to formulate a position and make it lively, make it interesting, make it relevant to their lives? That
Yeah.
if you don't think this class is relevant, it's because the problem is, I got to get you to speak up. Let's make it relevant together. Yeah.
Okay, well, I'm gonna have to go.
Yep.
So, but thanks a lot for your comments,
Thank
Jim.
you so
I
much
really
for bringing this
appreciate it.
up. Thank you so much for bringing it up and sharing with us.
Okay, bye.
Thanks.
Thank you so
Okay,
much.
bye-bye.
Thank you both.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks, Tamara.